Hello and welcome to the next installment of App Developer Conversations. I'm Roby Ganguly from Apptentive. I'm here with Ian Sefferman of Mobile Dev HQ and Ryan Morell of PlacePlay. We're going to talk a little bit about app marketing costs, specifically a report coming out in TechCrunch coming from Fixu, basically saying that app marketing costs dropped on average 20-25 cents per install in August. And the hypothesis was that it was because people were waiting for the new device. So first and foremost, do you believe that? Do you think that's why app marketing costs dropped?
There's so many variables, like who knows? My guess is that it was much more nuanced, and there's a lot of things going on in there. I would love to see how much did they drop last year's August, and what percent was that compared to this year's percentage drop. My gut says no. My gut says it's kind of BS.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I say a lot of things are the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I'll say about this one too. And Roby, you know, like traffic in August, just on all digital media and content, is just down, right? So I think the other thing that's important to note here is that these are all it's all market-based pricing. So app marketing costs went down because less people were either downloading them or spending for it. So probably it was a spend driver, and that just means that they knew something, and it was that most people just aren't doing stuff in August.
Yeah. At Yahoo, we saw every August prices went down, demand went down. People weren't spending as much time on the internet, ads weren't as effective, and marketers figured it out pretty quickly. They adjust, and some of the tools that people have are so sophisticated that it adjusts for them, right? So I don't think it's that the entire world was waiting for iPhone 5, even though that makes for a great story.
Yeah.
So then, okay, we don't necessarily believe that's why, but here's the next question, because we've talked about this several times. How will we know when some piece of data or several pieces of data in terms of price activity have actually are pointing to the market hitting its peak from a pricing perspective? What do you think? Like, what would you look for? Would it be like 3 months in a row of price declines? What would be the canary in the coal mine?
Yeah, so I think it'd probably be 3 to 6, probably even 6 months of price decline, varied over, including product launch, right? And validated by sources that didn't have a lot of skin in the game. And maybe ComScore is not a great example of who that person would be, but someone like that, right? So it's hard to say, like, oh, well, it's August. Everyone knows traffic is down in August, so that's a crappy thing. That's a crappy example. Oh, prices went up in October. Well, iPhone 5 just launched, so of course they did. Like, it's December. Prices always go up, so it's hard to get that time period, but I'd say 3 to 6 months. Sounds good to me.
What else would you look for?
I think that's a tough one. To me, it's gonna have to be some amount of quantitative data as well as subjective anecdotes from the largest of the advertisers. If it were TV, I would say, tell me what Ford is thinking. Tell me what Coca-Cola is thinking on the app world. Like, I don't know. Tell me what Zynga is thinking, right? I think you absolutely 110% have to have like that 3 to 6 month data. Without it, it's total bullshit. Like, I don't care about anecdotes, but I would also love to hear the anecdotes from the people who are driving the bulk of the spend.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that makes me think prices are probably going to continue going up as a long-term trend for a while is just we continue to see more big publishers coming online, more big brands coming online with apps or a suite of apps, and as a result, they've got a bunch of capital to spend, and that's going to continue to move prices up. And we still, I don't think we're seeing any decrease in the activity from these platforms who have, as we discussed in a prior installment, an incentive to buy up inventory and just pay for installs, because the bigger the network, the more they make money, right? So that, combined with the fact that more big brands are coming to mobile, seems to me to be favorable from a pricing perspective. Or the flip side is actually not favorable if you're an independent developer and you want to be in this game buying people.
Yeah. So I guess one of the questions I would have was whether or not the prices come down if and when, like, the quote-unquote platform guys who are not not trying to buy a user for a game, they're trying to buy a user for all of their games, realize that, and I'm not suggesting that this is true, but I would hypothesize that it might be that it's impossible to buy a user for a platform user on iOS or Android simply because the switching costs are zero. And that's clearly one of the things that's driving price up, right? So how much data do they need before they say, hey, buying users for $3 doesn't ensure that they'll stay with us throughout our entire product life cycle?
I think on that point, one of the arguments that Fixer is making is that their numbers around what it costs to buy a loyal user, right? But that seems, again, to be, I know that's Fixer's, their stance in the market is like, here's how you get loyal users and that sort of thing, but it seems like we're still really early. I've yet to see anybody do engagement well, to look at the numbers and say, I've been in this business long enough to know that this person's going to be around, or more importantly, that I've done over and over again business with people and brought them in for 6 and 12 months. So I think it's a good angle on things, but we're still pretty early about engagement retention.
Totally.
So I wonder though also if, because as you mentioned, more big publishers come in, quality of content gets better, so and therefore it gets harder to retain users, right? So you end up with only like the people who really love it. Or do you think it further accelerates how much people have to spend to acquire users?
Yeah, my bias is it changes where they spend money, right? So you could spend lots and lots of money advertising, and if it's a leaky sieve, it's a leaky sieve. So why don't you go spend more money on making your app awesome for the people who are already fans and are using it on a regular basis, and spend less time trying to acquire, brand new folks to walk in the door? I think that there's this aspect of retention that really is a shift in fundamental focus to your core audience, your base, as it were. That's what we see. All right. Well, thanks, and join us for the next installment of App Developer Conversations.
You could look at this from a super evil Apple perspective of, well, we didn't know how to do app discovery well, so we let a bunch of people do it. They determined who they